Apologies for the slightly late start as we gathered. Just to kick us right off, I would like to call to order the Public Improvement Commission hearing of October 20th, 2022. Mr. Liming, please take a roll call.
Certainly. Would the representative from the Public Works Department please state his or her name?
Yasha Franklin Hodge.
Property Management Department?
Joseph Callahan.
Transportation Department?
Amy Gordon.
Inspectional Services Department?
Ryan Ronan.
Water and Sewer Commission?
Denise Devlin.
And Commission for Persons with Disabilities.
Sarah Leon.
All present, we have quorum. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. First order of business, at the request of the Public Improvement Commission staff, the acceptance of the minutes of the PIC hearing held on October 6, 2022. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 6, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. Right, on to our first order of business. This is public hearing continued number 1 on a joint petition by Midland LLC and Midtown Tenant LLC for the acceptance of a pedestrian easement adjacent to Huntington Avenue, public way, Boston proper, located on its southeasterly side at address numbers 200 to 220 southwest of Cumberland Street. So it's new business on 8/25 and had a public hearing on 9/22, another on 10/6. And this is shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Pedestrian Easement Plan, Huntington Avenue, Boston, one sheet dated October 19, 2022. Would the petitioners please introduce themselves, their affiliations, give a brief overview and any updates since your last hearing, and after that we'll open up the floor for commissioners, followed by comments from members of the public and PIC staff. I will also note here that if members of the public do wish to comment on any item, please use the raise hand function and we will call on people that way. But with that, with the petitioners for public hearing continue number 1, please introduce themselves.
Hi, this is Ryan Gordon from Niche Engineering. Samantha Randall from National Development, I think she's having some difficulty joining, so hopefully she can do that in a few minutes. But I'm also joined by Chris Jones from IBI and Ian McKinnon from HSH, the transportation engineer and landscape architect for the project. We have a site plan rendering here for the updated site plan. And I believe this is for the pedestrian easement, right? So I'll go over that first. Our pedestrian easement has not changed in area from the last public hearing 2 weeks ago, but what we have added to our plan are sections that describe the building elements that are above and below the easement. So I have that on this updated plan, along with a note that calls out that the canopies are heat traced, drain internally to the building, and will not drop water, snow, or ice onto the sidewalk below. So I believe that addresses the comments that we received from the PIC office, but if anyone has any questions here, we're happy to answer.
Members of the commission? PIC staff or members of the public?
Staff is all set. I will take this opportunity to let the public know if you wish to add testimony, you can please use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. But I see none at this time, Mr. Chair.
All right, excellent. Do I hear a motion to approve public hearing continued number 1?
I'll make a motion to approve a joint petition by Midland LLC and Midtown Tenant LLC for the acceptance of a pedestrian easement in Huntington Ave as read into the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. On to public hearing continued number 2 on a joint petition by Midland LLC and Midtown Tenant LLC for the making of specific repairs within the following public ways in Boston proper, consisting of curb realignment, roadway and sidewalk reconstruction, as well as new and relocated pedestrian ramps specialty pavement, traffic signal infrastructure, street lighting infrastructure, street furniture, street trees, planters, landscaping, storm drain infrastructure, groundwater recharge infrastructure, bike racks, bollards, trash receptacles, driveway curb cuts, and a raised cycle track. Huntington Avenue at address numbers 200 to 220, generally southwest of Cumberland Street, Cumberland Street generally between Huntington Avenue and Public Alley number 404, Public Alley number 404 southwest of Cumberland Street. There's new business on 8/25 and has had 2 public hearings on 9/22 and 10/6, and is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Specific Repairs Plan 220 Huntington Avenue Public Way Back Bay 5 sheets dated October 19th, 2022. The petitioners please reintroduce themselves and give a brief overview of what's happening and any changes since your last hearing, and then we will open it up to the commission.
Everyone, I'm Brian Gordon from Niche Engineering, civil engineer for the project. I'm also joined by Chris Jones from IBI, the landscape architect, and Ian McKinnon from HSH, the transportation engineer. And again, I don't know if Samantha Randolph from National Development is able to join, but I'll let her chime in if she is. So from the last public hearing 2 weeks ago, we've updated our plan to, on the west side of Huntington Avenue, to have the same condition along that west side of Huntington Ave with trees and raised planters that are movable. After coordinating between the BPDA, the PIC Office, Disabilities Commission, and BWSC, it's really the only option here for us because of the limitations of the underground utilities. So I think what we've come up with is a way to have a continuous path of travel along Huntington Avenue. And if you have any additional questions on this specific area, you know, we want to make sure that we're addressing your comments. And then as we continue down Huntington Avenue, you know, we've made updates that are coordinated with BTD and BPDA's comments regarding the separated bike lane and the signalization, pedestrian signal infrastructure at the corner. We've consolidated some of the bike racks in different parts of the site that allow for the minimum number of bike racks needed for the project. And I did receive a question from the Parks Department this morning about the tree species, so we'll get the updated tree species list and make sure that those comments are addressed too. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the updates we've made from the last public hearing.
Members of the commission?
I just want to thank the project team for working collaboratively, both with myself, with the Parks Department, and the Boston Planning and Development Agency over the past few weeks to get this in a place where we can both have trees and have a accessible sidewalk.
PIC staff or members of the public, any questions, comments?
I see none. I think we're all set.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve public hearing continued number 2?
I make a motion to approve a joint petition by Midland LLC and Midtown Tenant LLC for the making of specific repairs in Huntington Ave, Cumberland Street, Public Alley number 404, as read into the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our public hearing section. We have, just because I believe there are a number of members of the public here who are interested in this next 2 actions, I just want to provide a little bit of context. So we have 2 actions related to a development project. One is a vertical discontinuance, which relates to the right of the project to come out above the public right-of-way. That is our first action. The second is a specific repairs action, which relates to changes to the public right-of-way proposed by the project proponents. So we are going to consider these as 2 separate actions. You know, if folks are interested in speaking on or have questions about any of these actions, please, as Todd and I have mentioned, use the raise hand functions at the appropriate time. I will also just acknowledge that we've received a number of community letters or a number of letters from members of the community with testimony that has been shared with the commission and read by the commission members. So we have received that feedback and appreciate that. So with that, I'll move on to public hearing number 1 on a petition by Horizon Development LLC for the vertical discontinuance of portions of the following public ways in West Roxbury, vertically above the grades of the sidewalk, Weld Street on its southerly side at address number 100 east of Center Street, Andover Road, Center Street on its southeasterly side at address number 1400 southwest of Weld Street, Andover Road. This was new business on 9/22 and is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Vertical Discontinuance Plan 100 Weld Street and Center Street, West Roxbury, 4 sheets dated September 22, 2021. Would the presenters please introduce themselves and their affiliations, give a brief overview of what is being proposed with this action, and any updates on this project since your new business hearing.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, and public. My name is James Gallagher. I represent Horizon Development LLC. We're here on the vertical discontinuance, as was just announced. So just a brief background, we were here, this building, as you see in front of you, I'm here with Bob Messenger from Howard Stein and Hudson, and Ian McKinnon also, and my client is also on the line. This building is the corner of Weld and Center Street in West Roxbury. The building is currently constructed. There are residents living in the building now. Since the last time we were here on new business, we did have a meeting with the local abutters that generally relates more to the second public hearing, but we did have a public meeting, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. But I'll let Mr. Messenger go through the actual plans. At least as to the vertical discontinuance, nothing has changed since the last time we were here on new business. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And again, my name is Bob Messenger from Howard Stein Hudson, and running through the vertical discontinuance plans here. We have discontinuances on both Center Street and Weld Street. We'll start with Weld Street. There are a few different locations. So there's a main roof and a lower roof on this side of Weld Street. And we're looking at the building. This is an elevation view. So this side of the street has 5 smaller discontinuances, roof projections over the property line. And they are vary between 5 and 6 cubic feet on this lower roof area. And up above on this main roof, it is 14 cubic feet. And to give you a better section view for this situation, the street line is here in red down the page, and to the left is the existing building. So to the right are the roof projections and into the right of way. And as you can see, they vary in width, but the heights are pretty consistent. They're 1 feet and 1 feet. This lower one is less than a foot here. And moving on to Center Street, there are more significant discontinuances. They are on multiple roof levels, as we just saw. There's a main roof level, a mid-roof level, and a lower roof level. And in addition to that, there are bays on the 3rd and 4th floor on this section of Center Street, and a 2nd and 3rd floor bay. These vary. The main roof is 269 cubic feet of volume. The mid-roof is 210 cubic feet. The low roof is 286. The 3rd and 4th floor bay is 1,300 cubic feet, and the 2nd and 3rd floor bay is 1,600 cubic feet. And I'll give you a section view through this here so you can see all the separate levels. And again, similar layout for the other section, street lines right down the middle here in red. Everything to the left is the building on the private property, and to the right is everything projecting into the right of way in your main roof level, mid roof with the bay in the low roof section. So the low roof section underneath the bay is about 5.5 feet. The bay itself is about 3.5 feet. And then on top, it's about 5 feet as well. And it varies throughout these sections, varying distances and volumes. And as James mentioned, nothing has changed for the discontinuances since the time the new business.
Thank you very much. Before I open it up for the other commission members, I do have a question, which is, I am relatively new as the chair of the Public Improvement Commission, but this is the first time I believe that I've received a vertical discontinuance petition for a building that was recently constructed and already occupied. Typically, a discontinuance would be granted prior to constructing the building in the space that we're being asked to discontinue. So I'm wondering if the proponents can explain a bit how we got here, why we're here now, and why this action was not completed prior to commencement of construction of this building.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the time we went through small project review, my client went through small project review. Once the approval was given, the permits were given, and at that point, and this was prior to my involvement, but at that point, I don't think that it was known or made aware that they had to complete that. Once they had finished and completed the small project review and were issued the permits, they were of the understanding that they were good to go to build.
Understood. I will just state, right, as the chair of the commission, that is frustrating to hear, both that permits were issued prior to receiving appropriate permission to do it, but also, quite frankly, that someone who was a developer who was funded well enough to support the construction and design of a significant building did not see to do the appropriate research to understand their legal obligations prior to constructing that building. Certainly there should be some city process to prevent this, but ultimately we also need members of our development community to understand and follow their obligations under the law, and it is always disappointing when there is a situation where that did not happen. So I'm glad that we are here now, but quite clearly this should have been a discussion we had some time ago. With that, I will, feel free.
No, sorry, I just want to say that my client totally understands this was the first project of this type of scope that my clients had ever engaged in. And like I said, it was well prior to my involvement. So I just think that they were, once they had completed the small project review, they were unaware and totally acknowledge, and obviously we've been well educated at this point. This is not something that is going to happen again.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Other members of the commission, comments, questions? All right, hearing none, PIC staff, and then we will open it up to members of the public to comment or speak on the vertical discontinuance petition. I see one raised hand. If you are interested in speaking on this petition, please raise your hand. And we will have an opportunity as well to speak on the specific repairs when we get to that business item. But first, PIC staff, any comments or questions?
No, just to reiterate what the chair just mentioned, we ask that you kindly keep your comments related to the action at hand, so the building projection specifically now. If you're interested only in the physical streetscape changes to the curbs and roadways and sidewalks and all that, we ask that you kindly reserve those comments for hearing item number 2. But at this time, Ms. O'Brien, if you would like to go ahead and unmute yourself. Julia O'Brien.
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just a little slow. Thank you very much. My name is Julia O'Brien, and I'm speaking as part of the Longfellow Area Neighborhood Association Board. I very much appreciate the chairman's comments, and Lana very much appreciates the chairman's comments. Great comments, so thank you for that. Lana did submit a letter on this project, and one of the items that we suggested in the letter was that perhaps the vertical discontinuance be held until the improvements at the intersection go forward. I don't know if that's usual procedure for the commission but it seemed to us that it would be helpful to make the project move forward smoothly.
Thank you for that comment. I will say we often will handle, I should say often, we will from time to time we'll handle when there are multiple actings on a single project that have different sort of discussion threads associated with them. We will sometimes move on those actions we typically move on those actions independently of each other where it makes sense to do so, but I appreciate that comment, and we'll call on Mr. Horn to speak next.
Paul, go
Paul
ahead.
Horn?
Yes, hi, good morning. I'm getting a message that my internet connection is a little unstable, so if this fails to come through clearly, I will submit my comments in writing, but thank you very much.
We can see and hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello? Okay.
Yep,
good.
we can hear you.
I just wanted to say I've been a West Roxbury resident since 1985, so I've seen a lot. And with all the new development taking place or proposed for West Roxbury, many of my fellow residents and I have been trying very hard to understand how best to engage with the city's review and development and approval process. It's often been frustrating, even getting answers to simple questions from City Hall. It's sometimes proven difficult. 1400 Center Street is sort of a case in point. I had 3 questions. The first, actually, the chairman already asked and was answered, though not very satisfactorily, why this was taking place now instead of before the building permit was issued. I guess someone dropped the ball or failed to pick up the ball. It's almost moot at this point. Second question of 3, though, is why has the city, knowing the level of interest in this project, why has the city, as I understand it, so far declined to hold convene recent public meetings with the most recently proposed improvements? This location straddles the Rosendale, West Roxbury area. As you know, it would be wholly appropriate for the city, one of the departments, transportation perhaps, BPDA, to hold a public meeting to discuss these improvements and get a better understanding. At a meeting Tuesday night held by a neighborhood association, Lana, there were many thoughtful questions and comments made to which the developer's team often had to say, in effect, we don't know, that's the city's decision. This is what the city asked us to do. Well, all the more reason for us to have a meeting with the city, convened by the city, so we can get these questions out of the table and our suggestions heard. Finally, is there any reason, even if the PIC votes to approve these discontinuance petitions today, is there any reason why the city can't go ahead and still hold these community meetings, hopefully to reach a consensus about what makes most sense for the community? These streets belong to all of us. Streets and sidewalks belong to all of us. We're the folks who have to live with them day to day. Let's have that kind of meeting and reach some consensus on the best way to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Horn. I think, those are excellent comments. Some of them, I think, pertain perhaps to some of the specific repairs actions in addition to the vertical discontinuance, but I appreciate those comments. I see another hand from Karen. Would you like to speak?
Hi, everybody. Sorry for coming in a little late, so I haven't heard your first comments, but as a resident over on Archdale South and using Florence Street and, being in Rosendale for almost 30 years, I am very concerned that we are not being as inclusive as, that we're not really considering all the angles and how these decisions are affecting our community on all different levels. Oh, am I on the wrong project?
Yeah, we're currently reviewing a petition related to vertical discontinuance at Weld and Center Street.
Oh, Weldon Center. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. So
No worries.
maybe I just need
So
to hear a little bit more before I make my comments.
Yeah, I believe there's another project later in the agenda that may be
About
your,
Florence Street.
your-
Okay, I'm sorry
yeah,
about that. All
Okay,
right, go ahead.
yeah. I see another hand from Carolyn Breen. Would you like to go ahead?
Yes, hello. I just wanted to find out on this particular part of it, the vertical discontinuance, what is actually being approved or disapproved? Because if it were to be disapproved, then the building would have to change to take them down. So I'm not really sure what the impact is of this vote to approve or disapprove.
Mr. Chair, if you'd like me to speak to that. The notion of a discontinuance is effectively removing the public's interest in the airspace above the public sidewalk where this building is currently, occupying. Were the commission to deny this petition, then yes, the building would be illegally encroaching over the right-of-way and conceivably would need to be changing. Should the commission approve it, then that airspace becomes, after a few more minor steps reporting at the registry and so on, that airspace becomes the property of this abutting building, and they would no longer be encroaching.
It's coming tomorrow afternoon.
I see. So it's really just affecting what's above. So this has nothing to do with like what happens on the sidewalk or the street.
Correct. It's strictly the building elements projecting over the sidewalk.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Any additional comments from commission members or PIC staff before we move on this particular action?
I do not see any. I think we're all set.
All right. So with that, I will ask if there is, do we hear a motion to approve public hearing number 1?
I'll make a motion to approve a petition by Horizon Development LLC for the vertical discontinuances in Weld Street and Center Street as read into the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. On to public hearing number 2 on a petition by Horizon Development LLC for the making of specific repairs within the following public ways in West Roxbury, consisting of curb realignment, roadway and sidewalk reconstruction, as well as new and relocated median islands, pedestrian ramps, traffic signal infrastructure, street lighting infrastructure, street trees, planters, landscaping, storm drain infrastructure, and driveway curb cuts. Weld Street generally at address number 100 at Center Street, Andover Road. Center Street generally at address number 1400 at Weld Street, Andover Road. This was new business on 9/22 and is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Specific Repair Plan, Weld Street and Center Street, Roslindale, 2 sheets dated March 31st, 2022. Would the proponents please reintroduce themselves and their affiliations and walk through what is being proposed and any changes since your new business hearing. I would also ask, knowing that there was a public meeting that the developer attended, if there are any changes or further comments resulting from that meeting that you share those as well.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission and the public. My name is James Gallagher on behalf of Horizon Development LLC for public hearing 2 on the specific repairs at 1400 Center Street. As mentioned, we were here on new business in September. We met with the Atlanta group on Tuesday night. We did have a good, long, thoughtful discussion, almost 90 minutes. We went through the plan, as you see on the screen in front of you. We talked a lot about the project's development over the last 2 years, in an integration of thoughts from the city, traffic department, Disability Commission, and many others. I'm here along with Bob Messenger, who's going to take us all through the plan. I would like to address one thing that the chairman said. In addition to what Mr. Messenger is going to describe that's on the plan, in response to some discussions and emails that I received yesterday from Mr. Liming, from comments from the Atlanta group, I've spoken with my client, and we have agreed to, and it's not on the plan, so that's why I wanted to address it, to alter the type of concrete that's going to be used on the driveway portion there that Mr. Liming had suggested. We're going to try to integrate structural soils in the tree pits to help growth of the trees and survival of the trees. And we're going to add some high friction, some green high friction pavement markings that Mr. Messenger is going to go through here. And I'm happy to answer any questions at the end, but I'll let Mr. Messenger take you through the plans right now.
Thank you. Again, Bob Messenger from Howard Stein Hudson. So Center Street is going left to right through your page here, and Weld Street is coming in at an angle down bottom right to top left, and Andover Road is up here just for visual orientation. And in front of the building here, we're relocating the curb, bumping it out 11 feet in parts with standard bump out 10-foot radius, and new concrete sidewalks in front. At parts, it's 14.5 feet wide from the property line to the back of the curb. On the tree pit here, we have about 10 feet, so it's going to be significantly wider than the existing condition. As James mentioned, we're providing a new driveway for the parking back here, and it was requested that this driveway be more robust than the city standard. And as he mentioned, we agreed with the city to do about an 8-inch concrete section and an 8-inch gravel section, which should help that survival for that driveway over time. We're proposing 4 street trees in 4-foot wide tree pits. They will be red maples, varying 3 to 3.5 inch caliber. And as James mentioned, we agreed to include structural soils to help those survive over time. In front of the building here, there'll be associated relocation utilities to make these bump outs successful. So we'll be relocating some catch basins as needed, and we're relocating an existing street light to be closer to the curb and the pedestrian path here. And there is a traffic signal here, but that will be retained in place. Overall, the project is also doing improvements for the intersection itself, not just in front of the building. There'll be 8 new pedestrian ramps in total. You can see some crosswalks on your plan here. In existing condition, it's the darker gray, and white will be the new proposed paint marking crosswalks. So as you can see, the goal here was to shorten some of these crossings and make it less of a skew with an angle, and that occurs in most of that was the intention behind these relocation of these pedestrian ramps with detectable warning panels for better accessibility and safer pedestrian pathways. All these new ramps will have relocated push buttons, so they will be right next to the push button and within reach. In addition to that, we are relocating this median here with a new push button, and you can see this existing crossing very skewed, and we're shortening it up and making it much safer to cross. And we are extending this island here as well with new ramps and a new crossing and push buttons, and again, associated utility relocations as required in order to successfully accomplish this.
Thank you very much. Members of the commission, comments or questions?
I have one question about the ped pole on the corner there that I believe you're retaining, but that's what you're dimensioning the 4.62?
Yeah, that's the current mast arm, I believe, the traffic signal.
It's the whole mast arm?
Yeah.
All right, then I won't ask you to move it.
I want to confirm that a 5-foot path can be achieved on the other side of the pole for pedestrians kind of coming around the corner.
On this side?
Yes.
Okay.
And then additionally, I'm not sure if it was reflected in the plan drawings, but we also want to ensure that we have detectable warnings in the median space. I think there is a note there, but it's just not reflected in this rendering.
Yeah, that is correct. The rendering did not pick that up. It's hatched. We are proposing it.
Okay.
It just wasn't yellow. And back over here, though, we do have almost 9 feet from the back of this traffic signal to the back of the curb here, and I can provide any other dimensions required, but there should be a decent amount of space, but I can hone in on that at a later date.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions from PIC commissioners? Hearing none, hand it over to PIC staff, and then we can open it up for public comment.
I'm all set. I think Ms. Weber Salamanca is first in line. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, there we go, thanks. 2 questions on the plantings. You said 4 red maples. Is there any possibility of doing more of an assortment? Because we need to really start looking more at biodiversity, and doing 4 of the same species is nice, but if you can, mix in a golden or, 2 reds and 2 of something else would be great. I'm also, I'm assuming this is all getting rid of impervious kinds of surfacing, and that you've got a whole forest plan for the walkway.
I think I can address at least Karen about the trees. I think the original tree selection was made in collaboration with the city as we were going through this. My client doesn't have any objection. We can work with the city to try to diversify some of the trees. I don't think that that's an issue. I think the main question is about survivability in the tree pits, and to make sure we get sturdy enough trees that we're not having trees
that you're not going to lose them, they're going to grow strong. Absolutely.
Correct. I'm not sure I understood the second part of the question, though.
Oh, well, the whole walkway there that you've got, I know the city's been trying to, think about reducing the impervious types of surfacing that we have, and so I didn't know what, what kind of porous surface you're looking at.
At least on the immediately in front of the building, besides the tree pits, everything is concrete. It is.
So what are they using? Is it crushed stone?
Well, no, it's concrete. You mean in the tree pits themselves?
No, the concrete, is it set up so that it's porous so that water percolates?
Yeah, so it would be impervious cement concrete in front of the building.
Okay. Is there what is set up for water around the building?
Water in terms of drainage?
Not just drainage, but I guess, water in terms of allowing water to be something that can go back into the soil easily.
Yeah, so everything will be grading toward the street and picked up through the existing catch basins or relocated catch basin that we're proposing.
Right, but that's where
similar
we're
to
having
the existing.
issues, right? Anyway, I just am curious because, well, I work a lot with water, and I'm not an engineer, but I am concerned that we're going too far towards the impervious side of things and getting things to drain out instead of having them percolate down and be part of our landscape. So I just didn't know to what extent that was put into these.
If I'm understanding the proponent's response correctly, the specific repairs do not include pervious surfaces. They are, there's presumably some measure of on-site stormwater capture per Boston Water and Sewer regulations, but the specific repairs being discussed today do not include that. Is that an accurate statement?
That's correct. When the building was constructed, all the catch water basins were installed. All that stuff is there. So that's
Okay. So it's just business as usual, development as usual. There's no news. Aside from the 4 trees, there's no other green. There's no other. ways that nature is going to recapture water.
Well, no, that's.
I think that's what we're hearing from the proponents here.
Well, I could comment. There are two large planters here will be on the face of the building.
I see those. Are those living walls, or they're just big planters with plants?
They're not living walls. There will be planters with plants that are going to be maintained by the condominium association. And we did have discussions the other night with the neighborhood association about exploring, trying to get on the ground plants in some type of, I'm not really sure what they would be.
Any chance for a green roof?
Well,
that's already off the table.
That's already up. We talked with the local neighborhood association about exploring how to put on the ground plants in planters around the corner on Weld Street to sort of break up. So we're looking into that right now, but that wouldn't be they're not permanent fixtures. They would be in pots, so they would be movable. But
I mean, obviously, it's not going to make a difference to whether the project goes forward or not. I just would like to have my comments input in terms of how we're looking at greening the.
Comments are noted. I would actually ask the proponents: is there a possibility of using some kind of permeable pavers in between the tree pits? We certainly, for accessibility reasons, need to keep a continuous path of travel with appropriate surfaces, on the main through line of the sidewalk. But it is common for us to see projects incorporate some permeable elements within the sort of tree zone where there's not actually a tree. So I'm curious if that is something the proponents would be willing to agree to do.
We can certainly look into it, Mr. Chairman. I guess the question would be just where we would put it. I know there are other obligations we have to maintain for the disabilities commissions and other ADA regulations, things like that. So I'm sure we could probably find areas we could use those, but we're happy to work with the city on finding those areas if they fit, and we could put them in.
Jim, you can work on that design with me after the fact if everyone is amenable to that.
All right. Is that can I get a confirmation if the proponents are amenable to that?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I just said, we're happy to work with Mr. Limey and find if there are areas that fits and we meet all the other obligations we have to meet under the law for things. We'll put them in. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Excellent. Thank you. I will call next on Ms. O'Brien.
Yes, thank you. Since the commission has voted to do the vertical discontinuance, the permits that the proponent will draw to do this work will become particularly important. And this is being done in a different way than I think is usual practice, although I'm unfamiliar with some of the city's contracting procedures. But it's Lana's understanding that the proponent is going to bid and construct this project. It seems to us very important that the proponent post a bond to assure the satisfactory completion of the project in conformance with the plans as we all end up agreeing to them, and that bond be accessible by the city. In other words, if this is simply a private contract done with a private contractor and that contractor fails to perform, it seems to us that the city needs some sort of recourse and that there needs to be a bond that the city can access to complete this work should that unfortunate and unhappy and not longed for situation arise. So we would urge the city to look very closely at how they're going to ensure a full and proper completion of this job, assuming, on the other hand, that the proponent has every intention of doing it and doing it well. It's simply fail-safe that we feel is important in this situation. Those are my only comments at the moment, except to say that there are substantial comments in the Lana letter about lane widths and bicycle facilities and the fine tuning and tweaking of what is basically a desirable improvement project in this area.
Thank you very much. Would the proponents speak to any deposits or bonds that have been put down as part of this whole process?
I think that I have to confirm that. I was actually just looking, but I think that we probably have to do that anyway for the work in the street, but.
So, yeah, you do, right? The close of this project, when they go to actually perform work, they will require permitting through both transportation and public works. At that time, they will post a deposit for all of the area of the public right-of-way that they are disrupting, and based on its material, they will post a deposit for that. Should the work not be done to our satisfaction, that money would not be returned and used to construct this appropriately. And separately, I will say that all contractors that work within the city of Boston need to be bonded with the city. So I think that that gets to both of the kind of construction protections here. I will say secondly to the bigger kind of transportation question here, I think that the transportation department has heard all of the comments and questions that are coming from this neighborhood regarding Center Street. I think that this project came as kind of a surprise to all of us, and at that point in time, transportation, the Commission for Persons with Disabilities, and Public Works, along with PIC, all got together to figure out, right, like originally they were just kind of reconstructing the sidewalk within the front of their property, you know, kind of minimally. We all got together to try to address what are known accessibility crossing concerns out here. And so this is, you know, kind of a little bit larger, I think, in scope than we typically ask for projects of this size. But based on the fact that they were a little late to the game, and to truly make accessibility improvements here, we really have to tackle some things on the other side of the street. This is what we came up with, and what the city has asked for in terms of both improving accessibility, but also not precluding much of the stuff that you are asking for. I think that there is a larger discussion about Center Street, which while it's not an active project for us right now, I think when we consider it, a lot needs to be done with both the angled parking and a look at, right, like how many lanes are needed out here, whether or not we need protected right lanes, signals, etc. All need to be considered as a part of that. So I think that we hear that, but I think that, right, we're trying to figure out what works within the scope of what these guys are doing to get this intersection to be better and safer, but not preclude any of the future bike and other dimensional requests that you want.
Well, short term, I very much appreciate that. Short term, we think that there are some opportunities that are relatively simple with paint and temporary adjustments that could do I won't say considerably more, but significantly more tweaking of this and create a test, if you will, for the ultimate future of Center Street. We certainly recognize that there are parts on both sides of this intersection that are beyond what one would expect from the proponent, although the proponent has achieved some significant value in terms of the vertical discontinuances. My understanding from the proponent at the meeting that we held, and by the way, thank you to the PIC for granting the deference a couple weeks ago, and we certainly scrambled to try to keep this moving in a timely way and to not unduly slow down. It's improvements that the residents of 1400 Center Street thought were going to be available much sooner. So basically, the project is sounding good. The opportunity to advance some of the thinking here and try out a little bit of improvement with paint and temporary designations seems not unduly onerous to the proponent, and seems to be the type of thing that would advance the longer term thinking on Center Street.
Thank you for that. Any commissioners want to respond to that comment, or should we continue? All right. Next up, Ben Crowther.
Hello, thank you, everyone. I'm Ben Crowther. I'm a member of the Lana Board and neighborhood resident. Just want to say first that we see a lot of improvement here over the existing condition, but also want to note that the intersection as it's designed still prioritizes speed over safety in a residential neighborhood with a really high proportion of elders and children. In particular, looking at those 24-foot wide lanes in each direction on Center Street, south of Weld, that's not acceptable. That's the width of 2 lanes on the Mass Pike, and if we build that, people are going to drive there like they're on the Mass Pike. So the Longfellow Neighborhood Association, Area Association would like to reiterate its request that the southern half of the intersection be designed with a single 11-foot travel lane in each direction, in line with the rest of Center Street south of Weld and a best practice according to the National Association of City Traffic Officials. We'd like to see the extra right-of-way be used for an expanded median to make it easier to cross, as well as protected bike lanes completing the network on Center Street. This is a residential and commercial area with a significant amount of foot and bike traffic that deserves a safe intersection. And we're really concerned that if this is built as is, and then the city comes back to make improvements to Center Street to make it safer elsewhere, the curbs are already in place here. Will the city be willing to realign these curbs if this project is completed as is?
Thank you very much for the comments. Any responses from Amy? Would you like to speak at all to future projects? Or
Yeah, so I mean, like, I think that, right, like, you guys are talking to us more so than this particular project team. I think that, right, like, I hear a lot of what you're saying, and I think that, right, like, we need to look at Center Street beyond this. I don't think that much can be done as far as some of these dimensional concerns without first tackling that angled parking, which is largely what the dimension, right, like what we have going on with this dimension. So I think that, yes, right, like all of those comments are taken, but should be taken honestly by the you know, the city and the transportation department. And I think that we have tried to take what we would like the future of Center Street to be into consideration when asking for these changes, so that nothing is precluded, but knowing that we are not imminent with any sort of large Center Street stuff, that this gets us accessibility and crossing improvements.
I believe next up we have Ms. Breen, Carolyn. You are on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. So I'm the president of the Highland Neighborhood Civic Association in West Roxbury. So and I own property in Jamaica Plain as well. So I travel this route a lot and pass this intersection. So there's a couple questions I have and a couple of comments. So Mr. Franklin Hodge, you had mentioned on the previous one that it would have been done before it was built. And it's what we're discussing now, all these changes. Also something that traditionally, or at least going forward, these kinds of things are discussed before the project is built, because like they're taking almost like a lane of traffic by being able to put in planters, and if they hadn't built their building so close to right up onto the sidewalk, we wouldn't be necessarily having the issues that we're having. So is this something that also that normally is done beforehand?
My understanding is that, Todd, would you like to speak?
Oh, I was just going to confirm that, yes, typically these types of approvals do happen before building is built. Obviously, that was missed for one reason or another, but we are trying to address it now and have the projects perform the appropriate improvements at their front door.
Okay. And so then the previous, so the distance between the island and the sidewalk now, so that is, it will continue to be 2 lanes based on what the last caller had said. Is that true, that it continues to be 2 lanes, or is it a left turn lane, or what is that?
Are you talking about going into the city?
Yes, if you're coming from West Roxbury into Jamaica Plain, the previous, I don't see his name up here anymore, but he had mentioned that it was still like for 2 lanes. I wanted to
It
confirm
would be
that.
24 feet, and I believe it is. Bob can correct me, but I believe going into the city will be striped at the intersection here for 2 lanes.
That's correct.
Okay, and just, I can understand his concerns about safety on that, but in some ways it's a good thing as well, because with the Faulkner Hospital so close, it is frequent that ambulances will be coming down that street. So to have it only a single lane with the island in the middle, that could cause problems as well for emergency vehicles or of any kind, or even a fire truck and things. So there is an advantage as well to having it wide. So I just want to keeping it, we're 2 lanes. The other thing, just on the trees, so the property I own in Jamaica Plain is on Center Street, and I know that Center Street does not have like street cleaning, like right up to the curb. They just sort of like go down the middle of the street, and so it is very concerning when the city's adding trees, or developers, whoever, that and maybe because this is the PIC, I don't know which department, Public Works, I guess. If we could have actually, like every once in a while, like other streets have, only one parking on one side, because the leaves build up in the gutter, and then there's never any cleaning right up to the gutter on Central Street. So that's just a concern too, that the condo association has to make sure that they're cleaning that up, and especially if the lanes are narrowing. So those are just my.
Thank you for those. Just on that last point, and sort of speaking on behalf of the Public Works Department, I do not have off the top of my head the specific street cleaning schedule for the area in front of this building where these trees are located, but it's my understanding that there was not any parking planned immediately, street parking planned immediately in front of this building. And so that would certainly allow sweepers on whatever schedule they're on to get right to the curb line to be able to address leaf litter and other concerns.
That's good, because on my property it is, and then we're always like cleaning it up ourselves. And then lastly, how all the local businesses, because there's a lot of businesses in this little block that are affected. Are they aware of this, or maybe I should like reiterate what others have said about there being a bigger hearing on this, since it's pretty significant changes.
So the changes are primarily in the intersection and directly in front of the property. These changes do not extend further south down Center Street towards the area. I mean, you can see the sort of limits are marked here. I think it crosses over the property lines, beyond the property line of this building slightly. But much of what it certainly will impact the intersection, but the abutting businesses are sort of further down on Center Street, and not the sidewalks and curb side in front of those businesses are not anticipated to change as part of this.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the comments. Mr. Horn, Paul.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick follow-up to the questions or comments I raised earlier, and I realize it should have been part of the presentation, so I apologize for that. But I wanted to go back to my question. In light of all the concerns, questions, suggestions that have been made just in this hearing alone, although it's not typically the PIC's role to do this sort of thing, I did want to ask whether there are any member agencies represented on the PIC who will commit to holding at least one more community meeting to explain and invite community comment on these improvements, limited though they are, and as anxious as I understand people are, understandably, to get going with this. There's a real need to explain and a real value in sharing the most up-to-date information with a broader spectrum of the community. And I don't know whether it's customary to do this at all, but I wonder if you've got folks sitting around the table, whether it's transportation or public works or BPDA. How about committing to another meeting, community meeting, before the holiday season is upon us, just to go over this and put a bow on this project? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that, right, like I think BTD is the right place for this. I think that we can discuss, right, how we got here from, you know, everything that we're trying to do to both not prevent anything in the future, but move this forward. I think if there are additional comments pertaining to how this could improve via striping, that's obviously still very much on the table, and we'll have some time for some stuff like that prior to them actually being out there installing this.
Well, I'm quite happy with my friends and fellow residents to work with you in getting a good, thoughtful audience for that meeting. So I look forward to hearing some details. Thank you.
I would just like to say that I think that's not going to, I mean, we would still like to go forward today with a vote and just discussions.
Yep. The striping is not right on the PIC plans as right. So like we're approving your curb line work here today. I will also say, should anything change minorly, right, like we can catch it on Mylar. But I think that as far as the neighborhood concerns are, and as far as the lanes and the lane definition and all of that stuff, it would largely appear in striping. And if there's any enhancements to be made in that, we can certainly just add that to the package prior to your construction.
So Amy,
And I will
jump in. Just for the sake of clarity, are you committing to scheduling a meeting sometime before the end of the year to go over this, even though the PIC will vote apparently to?
Yeah, I mean, or right, like I think that the best case is for right, like if there's an existing meeting that we can attend, right, like let's do that. I don't know the best way to get all of the relevant groups together, but I think that maybe with the support of ONS, we can figure out the best way to accomplish that, and then I can assure you BTD attendance and participation.
We will work with you to help you do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if, is there another comment there?
I was saying on behalf of Lana, thank you for that too. I think we can accomplish quite a lot with striping.
Thank you. And I will just, for a moment, take off my hat as chair of the PIC and speak as chief of streets for the city. I think, you know, very clearly in this process, the city has heard a strong interest from the community in making an intersection that is even safer and even more multimodal than the one that is presented here in the action that's being proposed here. To echo Amy's comments, you know, I think there's the design that you're seeing on the screen and that the PIC is considering. One of the ideas behind it was to ensure that we are not foreclosing on future changes and that there would be opportunities to, through a larger discussion with the community and a larger evaluation of a larger scale project that looks, you know, in both directions down the block on Center Street, leave us with the opportunity to make future changes that would further enhance this. So, you know, so speaking as chief of streets, I think there's a commitment to start that conversation. We do not, as Amy has noted, there's not an active project in this area to kind of do that larger scale rethinking, but I think we want to at least start with a meeting to really more clearly understand and discuss some of the priorities that have been outlined in the comments on this particular PIC action. And hopefully this action today, presuming that it passes, will be an interim step with opportunities down the road for additional work by the city and with the community to make further improvements. Putting back on my PIC chair hat, any further comments or questions from members of the community?
My only question is, like, this is referred to on the slide here as 100 Weld, but like it says right on the front of the building, 1400 Center, and it's just a little bit misleading to continue to call it 100 Weld when it's really 1400 Center, I think.
That was the two addresses that we were given, so that's how it's going in, and that's how these are actually just Mr. Messenger's plans. So.
Yeah, certainly the PIC action that we are considering contains both addresses. So it is sometimes the way that the city formally addresses buildings isn't the colloquial way we address buildings, but that's just to ensure clarity that we know exactly which parcels we're talking about. But I think in this case, this building is addressed in the way that it is addressed, and it sounds like from a postal perspective, that's 1400 Center, but the PIC action is very clearly associated with this project.
Just had a question pop up in the chat, probably for Jim. I'm guessing that the different tenants in this building use different addresses. The question was, which address do the actual residents use?
I believe they use the 1400 Center, but again, to follow up to Mr. Chairman's comments, I mean, when the property was first identified, it had two addresses from the city, both 1400 and 100 Weld. That was how all the permitting from the small project review, everything has been in those two addresses. And we were, that was how the submissions here were to go forward. So we've kept it consistent, so there was no confusion about which properties were being addressed. We weren't leaving one address off. It was try to be consistent through the whole project.
Once upon a time, I believe it used to actually be two parcels, right? There used to be like a little gas station tucked in back there, and it was a separate parcel. But I think that you're probably bearing two addresses today based on your utility connections and
Yes.
how we get all of that stuff in there. But I think that the 100 Weld is more of a city internal thing than, right? From here forward, you will see the 1400 Center.
Right. It actually is direct. I think it's from the utilities is the Weld Street address.
All right. Hearing no other comments, going once. All right. Do I hear a motion to approve public hearing number 2?
I'll make a motion to approve a petition by Horizon Development LLC for the making of specific repairs within Weld Street and Center Street, as read into the record by the chair, contingent upon a final striping conversation with the community prior to construction.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. Thank you very much. Thank you to the community members for participating in this, and looking forward to future conversations in the near term about this intersection and this street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the commission.
All right, moving on to public hearing number 3 on a petition by OMB Sprague LLC for the discontinuance of a portion of a slope easement adjacent to Sprague Street, Public Way, Hyde Park, located on its southeasterly side at address numbers 36 to 40, generally northeast of Sprague Place, Horn Street, new business on 10/6 of this year, and as shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Slope Easement Discontinuance, 36 to 40 Sprague Street, Hyde Park, one sheet dated October 11th, 2022. Petitioners, please introduce themselves, their affiliations, give a brief overview of what's proposed and any changes since your last hearing.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, attending community members, Attorney John Pulgini, representing the attorney for OMB Sprague LLC, and thank you for having us here this morning. As you remember, when we came before new business, this development is a 247 residential unit housing and went an Article 80 process. And at the Article 80 design process, they requested that our building be placed closer to Sprague Street. Historically, there was a private taking by the city in 1966 to establish a slope easement to fortify Sprague Street. The city currently has the responsibility of maintaining that area. As part of our working with PIC Legal and Engineering, the parties have agreed to discontinue a portion of the easement. The developer has negotiated an agreement wherein we will maintain the area. In the interest of time, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Justin Shaw from Commonwealth Development Partners to better explain the engineering and how our building will act as a retaining wall and provide more fortification for Sprague Street. But again, thank you for having us this morning.
Guys, sorry for the background noise. Going back, so I'll be quick. The building that we designed actually has a pressure injected.
Are you able to speak up at all? It's very difficult to understand you. I believe you're now muted.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if you may, just for the interest of time, I think Jordan Warshaw, who is the developer, is on this call, and he could share his screen to show you the plans. That may help to try to move this a little bit forward.
That would be great.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you. I'm just pulling up the plan on my screen here. For some reason, Zoom doesn't want to find. Okay, here we go. Can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Great. So as Mr. Pulgini said, we went through the Article 80 process shortly before COVID hit. And Sprague Street is a street that gains significant elevation from left to right on this plan, from south to north as it goes to the bridge over the train tracks. And historically, the buildings on this site have been below street level. So the site has essentially been separated from the road, and there's no interconnection between the property and the road. And one of the important pieces of the development here was to make Sprague more of a walkable road with interaction between the property and the buildings that are on the property. So the buildings will sit significantly higher than the buildings that are there today, which are below the level of Sprague Street, and will have frontage right on Sprague Street. Originally, the buildings were held back from the slope and created a gap between the buildings and the street, so there wasn't really pedestrian interconnection with what's going on in the site. And one of the comments that BCDC and the BPDA had was, can we bring the buildings closer to the street to establish a better interconnection? And we've got some renderings that we can show of how this works as well. What you'll see here is the blue line is now the line of the building at its upper levels, where it sits closer to Sprague Street, and there's a connection to Sprague Street, so the primary pedestrian entrance is right off the street now. The original slope easement followed the line that I'm tracing now with my cursor around this dotted area. We are replacing the slope there with a retaining wall, shorter at the low side, higher at the high side, and providing support for the slope by the means of retaining rather than natural slope where the lower levels of the building come in. And we've got separate drawings that show that. The slope area to be maintained is cross-hatched here. And as Mr. Pulgini said, the change is that we are now taking on responsibility for maintaining this area.
And I think it's worth noting, Mr. Chairman, that this slope easement is entirely on the developer's property.
And here for the board's reference is a rendering looking from Sprague Street. So you see Sprague Street directly interconnects with the building now, and then there's stairs where my cursor is now that walk down to the main level of the site, because it's still lower than the street, but we've mitigated that by making these connections at street level. We can walk through any more if relevant, but to show you at the lowest level of the property, there's very little retaining because the garage level steps back, and you see by the contour lines that there's a small amount of retaining here. Similarly, at the level above the garage, there's a small amount of retaining here, and then the building steps back where the slope is steeper. And so the building at this level is only in the air column over the slope. It is not within the slope. And just to differentiate, this, you see in the legend, the gray areas are what is within the slope. So they're fairly small areas only at the lower level. The greenish areas are areas overhanging the slope. So once you get above the garage level, we're just overhanging the slope and we're not actually in the slope.
Yep. Thank you very much. Members of the commission, questions or comments? PIC staff or members of the public?
I'll just mention that the project has been working with PIC Legal Counsel on a license agreement for to memorialize the maintenance responsibilities for this project. The project will be required to maintain the remaining slope easement and will be responsible for ensuring that the Sprague Street right-of-way is structurally supported in perpetuity. I'm actually not sure off the top of my head what the status of that document is. John might be able to speak to that, but that should be received and executed prior to any permit issuance.
And if I could just comment on that quickly, Todd, thank you. The agreement that I've worked with PIC Legal is complete. We've negotiated it through, and now it's just finalizing, some of the changes that were on this plan, but we're there.
Great, thanks, John.
And just to confirm, the recording of any easement will be, of this discontinuance will be contingent on the completion of that agreement and the full execution of that agreement. Is that correct, Mr. Lyman?
Yeah, we won't record anything until we have everything in hand, and no permits should be issued until we have everything in hand.
All right. Seeing no further comments from the public, do you hear a motion to approve public hearing number 3?
Make a motion to approve a petition by OMB Sprague Street, or Sprague LLC for the discontinuance adjacent to Sprague Street as read and directed by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Moving on to public hearing number 4 on a joint petition by Trinity Stewart Primary Condominium Trust and the Boston Planning and Development Agency for the vertical discontinuance of a portion of Stewart Street Public Way, Boston proper, located at the side of 40 Trinity Place, generally northeast of Trinity Place, vertically above the grade of the sidewalk. This was new business on 10/6 and is shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Discontinuance Plan, vertical Trinity Place and Stewart Street, Boston proper, one sheet dated September 22nd, 2022. The proponents please introduce themselves, give a brief overview of what's proposed before we open it up for questions.
Morning, Mr. Chair. Patrick Gallagher from Goldstein and Soares on behalf of the applicant here. I'm happy to go into a brief description of what's before the commission, but we would like to request a continuance to the November 3rd hearing. This is on a discontinuance of approximately 53 square feet to accommodate a building canopy at the project site. It was voted on and approved by the BPDA board at its October 13th hearing, but due to scheduling issues and I think folks being out sick, the taking order hasn't been fully executed and recorded to date. So we would just request a continuance, and again, happy to go into some more detail, and we do have the project team on the call, but it may make more sense to do that on the 3rd.
I think we can move ahead with that continuance and revisit on the 3rd. Mr. Lyman, just to confirm, we do need to take a formal vote for the continuance, correct?
Yes.
All right. Do I hear a motion to continue public hearing number 4?
I'll make a motion to continue public hearing number 4 until
November 3rd.
November 3rd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. Thank you very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Right. Thank you very much.
Moving on to public hearing number 5 on a petition by Crown Castle for a grant of location with lead company status and no participants to install new telecommunication conduit with city shadow within the following public ways in Charlestown: Chelsea Street, generally at address number 24, southwest of Warren Street between Chelsea Street and Park Street, Park Street southwest of Warren Street. This was new business on 10/6, as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Grant Location Plan, 24 Chelsea Street, Charlestown, 3 sheets dated October 2021. Proponents, please introduce themselves, give a brief overview, and let us know about anything that has changed since your last hearing.
Absolutely. Good morning, this is Ashley Perry from Crown Castle. With me today is Paul Costa and Bernie Spazzano. We are petitioning for a grant of location with lead company status with no participants to install telecommunications conduit with city shadow on Park Street, Warren Street, and Chelsea Street in Charlestown. We are implementing this project for a new small cell service to be delivered to a light pole outside of 20 City Square building. This project was presented as new business on October 6th. The length of this dig is 485 feet of conventional trenching between electric and telecom manholes on Park Street and proposed node locations on Chelsea Street. We will also install 3 handholds at Park Street and Warren Street intersections, at Warren Street and Chelsea Street intersections, and at the node location. We haven't received any interest or comments about this job since the last new business hearing. Are there any comments or questions about this petition?
Commissioners, any comments or questions? PIC staff or members of the public?
All set.
Do I hear a motion to approve public hearing number 5?
I'll make a motion to approve a petition by Crown Castle for a grant of location in Chelsea Street, Warren Street, and Park Street as read into the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. On to public hearing number 6 on a petition by Crown Castle for a grant of location with lead company status and no participants to install new telecommunication conduit with city shadow within the following public ways in South Boston: West 7th Street, generally at address number 87 between D Street and C Street and Joyce Hayes Way. D Street at West 7th Street. This was new business on 10/6 and it's shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Grant of Location Plan, 87 West 7th Street, South Boston, Mass. 1 sheet dated July 13th, 2022. The petitioners please reintroduce themselves and give a brief overview of what's being proposed.
Of course, good morning. This is Ashley Perry from Crown Castle. With me today is Paul Costa and Bernie Spazzano. We are petitioning for a grant of location with lead company status and no participants to install telecommunications conduit with city shadow on West 7th Street in South Boston. We are proposing this project at the request of Boston Water and Sewer Commission for their upcoming work on this street. Crown is proposing to relocate our existing conduit to the other side of the street. This project was presented in the new business hearing on October 6th. The length of this dig is 644 feet of conventional trenching between C Street and West 7th Street intersection and D Street and C Street intersection. We haven't received any interest or comments about this job since the new business hearing. Are there any questions or concerns about this petition?
PIC commissioners? PSC staff or members of the public?
All set?
Do I hear a motion to approve public hearing number 6?
Let me go motion to approve a petition by Crown Castle for a grant of location in West 7th Street and D Street as read in the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On to public hearing number 7 on a petition by EM449 Cambridge LLC for the granting of an earth retention license for the installation of a temporary earth support system within the following public ways in Brighton: Cambridge Street on its northwesterly side at address number 449, northeast of Emery Road; Rugg Road on its southwesterly side, southeast of Emery Road; new business on 10-6, and as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Conceptual Temporary Excavation Support Plan 449 Cambridge Street, Alston, 3 sheets dated August 2022. Would the petitioners please introduce themselves, give a brief overview of what's proposed, and update us on any changes since your last hearing?
Hi, I'm Chris Thomas with BSC Group, and good morning. Also with us today is Gianni Parenti, our owner, and I believe our attorney might be on as well. Can I bring up the plan?
We do not see it yet, but please feel free to share your screen.
All right. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks. So this is a request for installation of temporary earth support system for building, proposed building at 449 Cambridge Street. The earth retention system would be needed for the demo of the existing commercial building on the property, and for proposal of the residential multifamily building with structured parking in the basement and retail space on the first floor. The earth retention system would be along Cambridge Street, between Emery Road and Rugg Road, along portions of Emery Road and Rugg Road between Cambridge Street and Emery. And this would be a pile and timber lagging excavation support. And I believe
there a question? Oh, go ahead.
Yep. Oops, sorry. Yeah, I don't believe we had any comments from the new business.
All right, members of the commission, questions or comments? PAC staff, members of the public?
All set?
Do I hear a motion to approve public hearing number 7?
I'll make a motion to approve a petition by EM449 Cambridge LLC for the granting of an earth retention license for Cambridge Street and Rugg Road as read into the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. Thank you very much. All right, we are moving on. We are moving on to the new business section of our agenda. So up first is new business number 1, South Street, Florence Street, Firth Road, Sycamore Street, Brookdale Street, Archdale Road, Basile Street, Lindall Street, Murray Hill Road, Bexley Road, Mosgrove Avenue, Lesher Street, Stillman Road, Granfield Avenue, Fondale Road, Bradeen Street, West Roxbury, specific repairs on a joint petition by the City of Boston Transportation Department and the City of Boston Public Works Department. Would the petitioners please introduce themselves and discuss what is being proposed here, after which we will open it up for the commissioners to comment, followed by PIC staff, followed by members of the public. See a screen share, but not hearing anyone speak.
Yes. So my name is Alexandra Johnley, and I'm with Kittleson and Associates, and I'm the project manager on the consultant team for the Lower South Street and Vicinity project. I can walk through the first 9 sheets of this plan set to explain the specific repairs of the project. So this work performed for the Lower South Street and Vicinity neighborhood includes improvements on South Street and neighborhood streets from the Arboretum in the north to Washington Street. The neighborhood is also bound by Cummins Highway to the south and Florence Street to the west. The project includes improvements along Florence Street and the neighborhood streets in between and up to Washington Street. This first sheet details the construction of 41 speed humps in the neighborhood. The speed humps are spaced 150 feet to 250 feet apart to promote a consistent vehicular travel speed throughout the neighborhood at 20 miles per hour. Each speed hump was field verified to make sure they do not conflict with utilities, driveways, or fire hydrants. And variations in the spacing of these speed humps are the result of these features. This sheet is showing an overall map of the speed humps, while the next 4 sheets show a more detailed view of each proposed speed hump. Does the commission have any questions about the speed humps of the project?
Commissioners, anything you want to dive into here? I'm presuming are there other elements of the project that you will be presenting on after this? Is that correct, Alexander?
Yes.
Okay. Anything the commissioners want to ask about regards to this sheet? All right. If you want to continue on with the other aspects of the project.
Okay, I will. These are the details of the speed humps, but I will move to sheet 6. This sheet shows the specific repairs at the Florence Street and Firth Road intersection, which includes edge lines being reset, the existing sidewalk being extended, the reconstruction of pedestrian ramps, the construction of a raised crosswalk across Florence Street, and milling repavement of the roadway surface. This work includes the adjustment to storm drain features to maintain drainage at the intersection. Does the commission have any questions about this intersection? And I can.
Please continue.
Okay, yeah, I can just progress through the intersections.
Yeah.
And
Why don't we walk through the intersections and then we can jump back. The commissioners have copies of the plan, so and I'm sure are keeping notes on anything they want to discuss.
Okay, great. This sheet shows the specific repairs on Florence Street, at Sycamore Street and Harrison Street. The work consists of the construction of a raised crosswalk across Florence Street at Sycamore Street. It also includes extending the edge lines, widening the sidewalk, and reconstructing the pedestrian ramps, the milling repavement of the roadway surface, and new drainage infrastructure is being proposed to maintain proper drainage at the intersection. This sheet shows the specific repairs on Florence Street, at Brookdale Street, and Marion Street. The work consists of extending the edge lines and reconstructing pedestrian ramps at the intersections. Similar to other locations, there will be milling and repavement of the roadway surface and new drainage infrastructure as well. Also shown on this sheet is one of the proposed speed humps at 200 Florence, right here. And finally, this sheet shows the specific repairs of the realignment of edge lines along South Street, full depth pavement replacement at the intersection, the installation of a flush concrete median, the widening of the existing sidewalk, and reconstruction of pedestrian ramps, the milling repavement of the roadway surface, and new drainage infrastructure. There is proposed pervious areas in this curb extension, and those are to be maintained by others. And with that, I can open it up for questions.
Commission members, questions, comments? Yeah, I see staff.
I have one question actually quickly. At Brookdale Street, you mentioned that there's a speed hump going in just to the, whatever that is, Plan East. Is there a reason that we're putting a speed hump there with a dropped crossing to the west of Brookdale? Can we make that crosswalk a raised crossing instead? Or is there a reason that that wasn't considered?
Yes, so actually let me see if I can go to maybe this view here. Throughout the project, we were coordinating with the public, and initially this section on Florence Street was going to have curb extensions at Marion Street in order to provide a chicane, which would slow speeds in this section of Florence Street. But from feedback from the public, let me go back to that sheet. We received feedback that we would like to maintain parking on the south side of Florence Street, and so the curb extensions were removed. Oops, sorry, wrong sheet. The curb extensions were removed at Marion Street, and alternatively, we proposed a speed hump in this area. And there's also another speed hump near Sherwood Street. The spacing between the speed humps and the raised crosswalk at Sycamore Street promotes a speed that we are trying to achieve at 20 miles per hour. And so that is why this particular location was chosen for a speed hump instead of a raised crossing at Brookdale Street.
We also had some resident concerns about parking loss and parking maintenance in this area, as well as some concerns that are outside of the project limits that we might need to come back to address heading into the curve from the south east of this sheet.
Thank you. That's all I have.
If there are members of the public who are interested in speaking on this, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and we will call on you in order. And I will start with Mr. Kirkpatrick. Dennis?
Hi, thank you very much, sir. These are very interesting changes in traffic mitigations. The Slow Streets people have put a lot of work into this. My concern right now is, per my understanding and my dialogue with the Slow Streets Department, the original project was for South Street between Archdale and the intersection of Firth and Washington. A second area was added to meet the Slow Streets geographical area so that they would have a mission zone, and that would be the segment of land known as the Healy to Cummins Neighborhood Association, from about Cummins Highway northerly along Washington Street to about Stillman Road, or even down to Whipple Avenue, about dead center of this diagram that is now being proposed. The pigtail at the bottom of the diagram for Florence Street, per my understanding and answers from Slow Streets, was actually added by the Transportation Department. There have been some concerns about this. Two interests of mine, and I see that some of my concerns have been addressed, is that there's been a lack of really a broad-based knowledge within the Florence Street area, but that's Florence between Firth and Blakemore, of the neighborhood. There are a lot of connecting streets that are going to use Florence Street, and this is going to impact them. At least one interested party had made formal requests for statistical data to review. This would include accident data, traffic studies, etc. And while these requests were acknowledged, that data has not been forthcoming. Based on what little information could be obtained through public media that's already online, it appears that only 20 people filed something in response to the Q&A put up by the Slow Streets people. I think that's a beginning. I think we lack a broader civic engagement on this, and I am very concerned about that. We know that the mayor, for example, has developed an entire committee within the cabinet to speak on civic engagement, and I think this is something that needs additional dialogue. I am not opposed specifically to all of this. I am concerned about certain things. Speed bumps, for example, anywhere near Florence and Sycamore, and crosswalks there, great idea for the public, but I've lived here 40 years. That is a very blind intersection, and despite speed mitigation, a location of a crosswalk there is inviting a disaster. In fact, that has been one of the areas where there has been some very serious concern. So for my position here, I think we need a broader engagement of the neighborhood association. Indeed, I but had an email interaction with the leadership of Healy to Cummins, and they had been out of town, and there is some concern there as to how many people have actually engaged in this. I don't want this to look as if the city of Boston is imposing this on the neighborhood. I think it's going to be better for everyone if there is a broader participation and a hearing of everybody. This may require a little bit of feet on the ground type of work. I'm not sure if that's possible based on available manpower, but I think it's something to be considered. So I have mixed emotions about this proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any additional comments or responses from the proponents or members of the commission?
As the project manager for our Slow Streets program, I'd like to give a quick response here. We have heard from a lot of people who live on Florence Street, including people who live at these intersections where we are proposing crosswalks and curb extensions. We have done a significant amount of on-the-ground outreach, including flyers, walking tours, and meeting people at announced events within the neighborhood. The initial response to the survey that we sent out is not the only information that we use to decide what our priorities are, nor is it the only time that the public has ever had an opportunity to comment or change the plans as they have in this instance. To the point that Florence Street was not originally part of the zone when we began our work. The reason why we added it was because we heard from people who live on Florence Street and the streets feeding into it that they felt simply focusing at Firth as our first intervention would not actually meet their needs, and asked if we could please extend the limits, which we have done and we have modified based on several rounds of public input. In regards to the data, we have gone through that in our public meetings, and it is all posted online, and I'm happy to follow up yet again with those who have been asking about it. The Slow Streets program is prioritized largely based on demographic information, not on crash history. It is prioritized based on the number of people in the households who are 18 or under, those who are 65 and older, people with disabilities, and the nearby locations of places of public gathering, such as public parks and public schools, which we have in this neighborhood. I'm happy to also send those as a follow-up. We have only recently just finished some of our latest rounds of outreach, and we've heard from a lot of people during that phase. We do not have a formal mechanism for tracking every single person and their address. Part of that is for privacy concerns. Any information that is provided to the government is public information. And so if people want to write comments down, if they want to include their name and address, they're welcome to, but we did not require that as part of their ability to participate publicly. We also have had conversations that were in Spanish and other languages that were verbal conversations, not necessarily in writing. So those types of things are sort of like soft information that we try to work through and evaluate as we're doing our work. But I am very confident in the staff's time and energy spent to bring this project through a 2-year-long public process.
Thank you very much. Calling on Mr. Gagg. Steve, would you like to speak?
Sure, thank you. I'll be very brief. 37 years at 631 South Street. In that 37 years, from the very beginning, I've been working with neighbors, many neighbors, on slowing traffic down in our street. We are a cut through, as is Florence Street, for people trying to get to Washington Street or Cummins Highway. And we, I think the latest BTD count on the average number of cars coming through South Street from the Arboretum is somewhere on average around 3,000 to 4,000 per day. Many of them come around the corner to get to the arch, somewhere around 30 to 40, sometimes 45 miles an hour. So this is about safety. I'm really pleased that BTD and the Slow Streets program have done such a great job in looking at this closely, working with the neighborhood many, many times in community meetings, Zoom meetings. I personally, along with other members of the community, have distributed flyers to hundreds of doors. I've been on probably a couple of dozen meetings, both Zoom and in person, about this. This is a thoroughly researched and vetted project. It gives us what we've been talking about getting for many, many years. So I'm pleased with it, and I look forward to this occurring sometime next spring, I hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Weber-Salamanca, Karen, please go ahead.
Well, thank you for this meeting and the opportunity to voice my opinions. And thank you, Steve, for all the work we've done together to help our community be safer on South Street. I'm on the other end at Archdale and South. So I don't think this is, I'm not good at this particular vote or whatever is impacting our intersection at this moment. But even just as a resident of Rosendale and a user of Florence Street on a regular basis, I do want to support what Dennis mentioned in terms of working with the community, making sure that that area is set so that people feel not just that the streets are calm, but that they're able to live there, that they can park where they need to, that that they're safe. So to whatever extent the project looks at that inclusively, I support that. Otherwise, I have not felt quite the love that Steve feels on the other end of the street. I feel like our end of the street has not had an opportunity to really be, really have the conversation we need to have around our corner. So to whatever extent, I just want to put that out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comments? Please raise your hands.
Chair, I'm sorry, Alexandra, could you please go to the South and Florence sheet so that Ms. Weber can see what is being proposed here? We have also done a significant amount of outreach in this area, including to all of the residents who immediately abut this intersection, in addition to more general public outreach, including flyers, pamphlets, postcards, and in-person advertised meetings. In response to constituent concerns about parking loss at this intersection, which were largely over a minority of opinions that were shared with us about parking issues in this specific intersection. We have retained all existing parking that is legal and appropriate for the intersection. We have removed our initial look at this intersection that included a raised crosswalk coming from Archdale towards the Arboretum, and instead provided only an additional speed hump. Per our data, the speeds on Archdale Street are significantly higher than the 25-mile-per-hour default speed limit, and certainly much higher than the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit that will become the regulatory speed for this area. We have also added speed humps on South Street within the Arboretum. We have relocated the crosswalk to be closer to the MBTA overpass, and we have ensured that all driveway access is provided in this intersection. All of these changes were in response to specific comments from residents who live on that intersection, and we have gone through multiple iterations with everyone publicly and have come to this conclusion as the best balance of the needs of all of the residents, including those who live directly next to this project area.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other comments or questions, will the proponents be ready for a public hearing in 2 weeks on November 3rd?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, we will see you then in 2 weeks. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to new business number 2, Camden Street at 396 Northampton Street, Boston proper, pedestrian easement, specific repairs on a set of petitions by the City of Boston Public Facilities Department. The presenters please introduce themselves and describe what's being proposed, and then we'll open it up for questions or comments from the commission.
Good morning. My name is Chris Sunny with Niche Engineering, civil engineer for the project. I'm joined here by Brooke Trivis from Perkins & Will, the architect for the project, and I think Evan Brinkman is the one left standing from Public Facilities Department here. Correct me if I'm wrong here. But I'll turn it over to Brooke for a brief overview of the project, and then I'll run through the PIC plan itself.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much, Chris. Just to let you all know, the new Carter School replaces the existing school on the same site. You can see it in the drawing here. The site is located adjacent to the MBTA and Southwest Corridor between Northampton and Camden Street. The Carter School is a very small but significant Boston public school, providing access to equitable education for 60 students who present severe cognitive and physical disabilities. This is a ground-up new construction. It's about 85,000 square feet, 3 stories, providing direct access to the sensory garden on the ground level, on the east side, and on the roof. This provides necessary access to nature and the outdoors. The pedestrian and vehicular access, which Chris will talk about, remains mostly intact, with a bus drop-off at the front and loading on the west side. Chris, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Brooke. I think we've got a couple other just quick renderings here. So I'll quickly walk through the PIC plan here. The specific repairs that we're proposing are on Camden Street, which is on the southwest edge of the property. So just to orient ourselves a little bit here, the orange line southwest corridor is here on the left side of the plan. The southwest corridor park is on the right side of the plan. The northeastern the city and northeastern Camden, Carter Playground is underneath us here. So the proposed improvements consist of the reconstruction of a pedestrian ramp to align it with the existing compliant ramp, which is across the street. We'll also be revising the curb line and the curb opening where the bus drop-off meets Camden Street to align it with the new building location. We have to shift the parking a bit, and also just to provide better access for buses coming in and out and for other vehicles. We've had some back and forth with Sarah at the Disabilities Commission and added in this raised crosswalk. There really is no crossing here today, no accessible crossing. from plan right to plan left. So in order to do that, the raised crossing seemed like the best approach. And in order to make that work, basically the pedestrian path is going to extend onto the property a bit. So we're also proposing a small pedestrian easement, about 295 square feet, which will extend onto our property, the school's property, just to allow for this to be built. Pedestrian path will continue along Camden Street. Again, in discussions with Sarah, this sidewalk is not in the best condition today, so we're proposing to basically demo and reconstruct it, just so we get a nice fresh sidewalk. We'll be relocating a single street light so that it is within the new curb line. And then finally, there will be a new curb cut for loading and access to the MBTA easement in the back here. This was originally, when we sent the plans out, 20 feet wide. We had been asked to try to reduce the width of that, and based on the vehicles that are turning in and out, we were able to reduce it to 17 feet wide. So that's the long and the short of it. I'll open it up to any questions or comments that the commission may have.
Apologies if I missed this, but can you answer whether this is affecting the area? I believe there's a footbridge of the MBTA right of way. Can you just explain what, if any, impact this project will have on the footbridge?
So this project is not going to impact the footbridge. The only impact it would have would be to provide some better access, just as pedestrians will be able to come up and approach it better, but we're not actually doing any physical work associated with that.
Got it, but there will be an accessible pathway, presumably, that allows for a continued clear line of travel between, for people on the sidewalk on Camden Street when accessing that footbridge.
That is correct. So on the northeast side of Camden Street, there isn't an accessible route today, and there will be with these proposed improvements.
Thank you. Members of the commission, questions?
Hi, I want to thank the team for their presentation and also their collaborative effort with the Mayor's Commission for Persons with Disabilities. I did want to confirm the use of detectable warnings both at the new pedestrian ramp and at the raised crossing. And then additionally wondering if the transition from the new raised crossing could connect maybe a little bit better to the newly constructed sidewalk, if maybe that kind of straight edge there could be tapered a little bit. I'm not sure if that would impact the pedestrian easement that the project team is seeking, but just to kind of shave that harsh angle off of that path of travel to maybe better connected to paths.
We can certainly take a look at that and try to shift it. We were able to move it closer than we had originally proposed the crosswalk to straighten the path out. We can look to see if we can shorten it a bit more. We do want to try to avoid steepening the slope down too much, just from a vehicular standpoint. We don't want it to be too steep, or otherwise it won't work in that sense. But we can take a look at that.
Yeah, and if it means kind of taking that right angle off of what I'm assuming is landscaping and maybe paving that area to have it better kind of flow back into the path of travel that leads to the ramp and the stair that leads to the Mass Ave T station. Maybe that is a solution, but we're happy to review any drawings between now and new business or public hearing to ensure that connection is a little bit maybe more legible.
Okay. We'll take a look at it and we'll be in touch between now and public hearing.
Yeah, Chris, I wonder if the pedestrian easement and concrete sidewalk could just be extended along that fence line, kind of as you go northwest from the raised crosswalk.
You're talking about right through here?
Yes.
This area?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look. I mean, I think, whether it extends the entire width, because at some point we run into, there's this fence as well, so we'd run into that. So maybe we do just taper it back so to just in a more gradual way, direct pedestrians back towards the sidewalk in the public way.
Yep, we can work on that. Thanks.
Other questions, comments from members of the commission? Yeah, I see staff or members of the public.
My only other question would be regarding that right angle granite curb area. It'd be nice if you're going to be pulling up that curb anyways, it'd be nice if we could create a curb taper. That just seems like a spot that's prime for ponding, trash, leaves, all that good stuff, and we wouldn't have a good way to get a sweeper in there to clean it out ever. If we could consider that as well.
Okay, yeah, we'll take a look at that as well. Just rounding that off to make it a little more standard, what you're looking for.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
All right. Joe, did you want to jump in? Okay. Hearing no other questions or comments, will you be ready for your public hearing on November 3rd?
We will.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We will see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
On to new business number 3, 40 Soldiers Field Place, Brighton, pedestrian easement, specific repairs, and a set of petitions by 40 Soldiers LLC. Would the proponents please introduce themselves, their affiliations, and walk us through what is being proposed?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Commissioner, members of the commission. Apologies, my light turned off for some reason. Attorney Nick Zazula, McDermott, Quilty, and Miller, here on behalf of the petitioner, 40 Soldiers LLC, and Jeff Yearman, who's with us today. Our civil engineer is Bert Corey from DGT Associates, and our transportation engineer is Guy Busa from Howard Stein Hudson, who is also on the meeting today. You can see here, Mr. Commissioner and Commissioners, a broader site context. This is a new business hearing, so just want to give you a little bit of background on the site. You can see here it's in the northern riverfront edge of the Brighton neighborhood, along Soldiers Field Road, near the intersection with Leo Birmingham Parkway, so it's just north of the Pike. The site itself is about 20,000 square feet. It is a through lot, meaning it fronts on both Soldiers Field Place and Soldiers Field Road. It's important to note that Soldiers Field Road is a DCR road, not a city road, so that's not part of our petitions here today. Soldiers Field Place is a dead-end cul-de-sac street, and the project site is currently occupied by a single-story office commercial building. Bert, you can see this is the site. You can see a few of the other projects that have been approved in the past few years on this street and have come before the commission as well. 40 Soldiers Field Place is right there in the middle of two other projects that have been recently approved. Bert, can you go to the next slide? So just to give you a little bit of context about the project itself, you can see an image here from Soldiers Field Place. It's a multifamily residential building. It's about 69,000 gross square feet. It's 6 stories, 61 residential units, 49 garage parking spaces. What's being proposed as well as, new and expanded sidewalk connections, improved pedestrian and vehicular access to the site. Garage access will be from Soldiers Field Place, as well as other site upgrades. So this would, the project would revitalize this specific site in between some other recently revitalized sites as well. This used to be a mixed-use kind of commercial corridor that's since kind of been redeveloped and transformed into multifamily residential uses. This would continue that development process. As a result, this proposal specifically has been carefully designed and planned as a transit and pedestrian-focused development. And the hope is with these specific repairs in the ped easement, it would enhance future connectivity and walkability in this kind of emerging neighborhood. And then very quickly, just to orient everybody to the process, we do have Article 80 large project review approval from the BPDA that was approved in June. We did get zoning approval back in August. And during that process to get to this point, there's been, a really robust community outreach, extensive process for the project, which has actually ended up with support from the two applicable civic groups, the Allston Civic Association and the Brighton Allston Improvement Association. So that's all kind of brought us to where we are today in front of you all for specific repairs in the ped easement for new business. I will toss it over to Bert at DGT, who can kind of go through those plans in more detail. Thank you. Bert, give it over to you.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me just zoom into this area here. So the specific repairs that we're requesting are to replace an existing concrete sidewalk that runs along the front of the property. There's also two existing curb cuts today. There's a 22-foot wide curb cut as well as an 18-foot curb cut today. So as part of the specific repairs would be to remove this curb cut that's on the east side of this site and to replace the existing curb cut that's on the west side and shrink it down into a 12-foot wide driveway that would provide access to the building. The sidewalk itself would remain as a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk with a 3-foot wide permeable paver strip along the front face. That coincides with the work that's being done or what's been approved for 1550 Soldiers Field Road. So there's some consistency along the, along the sidewalk, along the street. There are 3 proposed street trees along that permeable paver strip. And it's also, it provides, obviously it's ADA compliant. It's relatively flat out there. So it meets all of those requirements. There is a crosswalk that was part of the 1550 Soldiers Hill Road that is about 138 feet west of this site. The comments that we received when we reached out to the public agencies was that from disabilities, they wanted us to at least put on our plans that the control joints for the sidewalk were going to be saw cut, so we've added those to the plans. We also were requested to specify the type of street tree. It happens to be a Kentucky coffee tree that we've specified, and that was okay with Parks and Recreation. And then the lighting department had requested to install 1 light pole in front of the facility with a hand hole, and that's been added to this plan. That's about it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to entertain those.
Thank you very much, members of the commission. PIC staff or members of the public, any questions?
No, all set.
We can move on to the pedestrian easement too.
Oh, yes, apologies. We did not cover that. Go right ahead.
Right, that was for the specific repairs. So the pedestrian easement, let's see. Bear with me, hold on a second. In order to provide a 5-foot wide walkway with a 3-foot wide permeable paver strip, it requires some of that construction to occur well on the property. So we've also requested a pedestrian easement to provide access for the city to be on the property with that sidewalk. And it requires, you can see the dimension on there is only 1.75 feet into the property along the entire frontage for a total pedestrian easement area of 175 feet.
Thank you very much. Any follow-up questions? PIC staff, Todd, are you good?
All set.
All right, will you be ready for your public hearing in 2 weeks on November 3rd?
Yes. Can we do it now? No, I'm just kidding. Yes, we will be on in 2 weeks. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nick. We'll see you then. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to new business 4, Massachusetts Avenue, Huntington Avenue, Boston proper, granted location on a joint petition by the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, Eversource, National Grid, Vicinity Energy, Comcast, Verizon, Crown Castle, and Extenet. Would the proponents please introduce themselves and their affiliations and give a brief overview of what is being proposed?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. How's everybody doing today? Dino DeFranco, Sr. I'm the municipal liaison for the project, also responsible for stakeholder engagement. Just to give you a quick briefing so you understand what's going on here, the Symphony Station project was broken up into 2 separate contracts. Today, we're going to speak about the utility relocation contract. We'll be coming back to you again once we're ready for the station improvements and surface improvements contract. So today is strictly for the utility relocation. Just to let you also know that we are working with the city, coordinating with the city on including an elevated bike lane as part of this project. We're coordinating with BTD and Public Works. That will not happen until the second contract, which will be station improvements and surface improvements. We've also had a number of meetings with Ed Hesford over the past couple of years, just talking about proposed CMPs and TMPs. And we've worked with neighborhood services and also with the stakeholders, BSO, Horticultural Hall, Northeastern Christian Science, Symphony Towers, East and West, and Fenway Civic Association. So today from the MBTA is the Senior Project Manager, Leo Murphy, and from Thornton Tomasetti is Judd Galloway, and I'm going to pass it over to Leo Murphy.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dino, for the thorough introduction. As Dino explained, this project is just for utility relocation. For the upcoming future project, we'll be back next year to talk about the future project. But this ask right today is for utility relocation of 7 utilities. And the project extents are between St. Stephen Street and St. Botolph Street. And the focus of the work will be at the intersection of Huntington Avenue and Mass Ave. So with that, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Judd Galloway from Thornton Tomasetti, who will explain a little bit more about the utility relocation work.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name, as Leo said, is Judd Galloway. I'm with Thornton Tomasetti, Prime Project Manager from the design team side. I have up here on my screen the grant of location PIC plans that show the proposed subterranean utility relocation work for the project. As Leo said, we have numerous utilities, 7 major utilities that we have to relocate in order to move them out of the way of future SOE, which you can see on this plan, located at the corners of Symphony Hall, or located at the corner of Mass Ave and Huntington Ave near Symphony Hall, Horticultural Hall, and then to the south near Symphony Plaza Tower, east and west. There's multiple utilities to be relocated, including gas from National Grid, steam by vicinity, electrical, both Eversource and the MBTA, power, Comcast, television, and fiber optics, telecom from Verizon, internet from Crown Castle and Extenet, and then water and storm lines also. That's kind of the summary of the overall project. As you can see, as Leo mentioned, the bulk of the work is at the intersection of Mass Ave and Huntington Ave, and we do have some work that goes up north to St. Stephen Street. That's MBTA power relocation, and then a Comcast relocation, and then also down to St. Botolph Street, which is the Verizon telecom relocation. Are there any questions, comments?
Yeah, I'll note that right now BTD is making modifications to the intersection of Huntington and Mass Ave from both right lane allocation and signal modifications. I know that you've been working through your CMP on this with Ed, but what will be there when you get there is different than what is there today. So I think that there will probably be some level of adjustment just where stuff lines up, and then the inclusion of we're adding protected bicycle facilities out here, so that be included in the construction management plan, as our modifications will go in right now, hopefully, but that your stuff will probably, or your construction will probably begin around the time we'll see an uptick in people using those facilities. So just make sure that those get included in the construction management plan to reflect the new intersection.
Absolutely, Amy, not a problem, absolutely.
Just to put a finer point on that as well, we, are introducing bicycle safety features at this intersection. This comes on the heels of the death of George Clemmer in July of this year, who was killed by a truck driver at this intersection. And so it is important to the city that when we put in place a new bicycle facility that is adding protection, that it not immediately be undone in the course of the construction process. And while we fully understand that the construction is going to be very disruptive to this whole intersection, we would like the project proponents to make every effort to maintain a protected path of travel for bicyclists through this intersection during the course of construction, and to make sure that there is a great deal of care paid towards preserving that additional safety that we are added throughout the course of the project, and so that folks don't feel like something was safety was given and then immediately taken away. So that is a specific ask related to the construction management plan, and we certainly hope and expect that the proponents will make every effort possible to preserve that safety during construction.
And Chief, working with BTD, the project will make every effort to accomplish what you just laid out.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from members of the commission?
On an additional related note, this intersection is also home to the Symphony Towers, which is dedicated affordable housing for older adults as well as folks with disabilities. So the same safety concerns I think the city also has for pedestrians as well.
And Sarah, I've had a number of meetings with the management team over at Symphony Towers, and we've got a great relationship. I talk to the manager often, and we understand the sensitive nature of the folks that are living there and their disabilities and their issues. So we will make sure we stay on top of that.
Fantastic, thank you, much appreciated.
Other comments or questions from the commission? PIC staff or members of the public?
One other bit that I'll mention, and you're perfectly aware of this, but it's worth mentioning anyways. Symphony Hall is right there, and they're always very concerned with any construction activities going on in the vicinity. So I'm sure you've already been in touch with them, but please continue to coordinate your construction schedules and methods and everything else with them so that they're not going to be experiencing anything too detrimental.
Yeah, and Todd, we've had a number of meetings with them, and those meetings will continue. We've got a good relationship with them, and as soon as PIC is over on the 3rd, we plan on going back to them and having another meeting with them, and those meetings will continue through all construction phase services also.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, will you be ready for your public hearing in 2 weeks?
Yes, we will.
Wonderful. Well, we will see you on the 3rd. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You too. Thanks, Dino.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to new business number 5, 627 Columbus Avenue, Camden Street, Boston proper, granted location on a petition by Verizon New England Incorporated. Would the proponents please introduce themselves and walk through what is being proposed here?
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is James DeTrondo. I'm representing Verizon New England. Let me just share my screen real quick. All right, so Verizon is petitioning to place new conduit from existing Verizon main hole 875, approximately 494 feet with a city shadow to a proposed shared use handhole that will be placed by XNet. Are there any questions?
Members of the commission? PIC staff and members of the public?
James, can you just confirm that this is to provide service to a new DAS node on a streetlight?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
All right, will you be ready for your public hearing in 2 weeks?
Yep.
All All right, we'll see you on November 3rd. Moving on to new business number 6, 33 Harry Aganis Way, Commonwealth Avenue, Boston proper, granted location on a petition by Verizon New England Incorporated. Would the petitioners please reintroduce themselves and walk through what is being proposed?
Again, James Day Toronto, representing Verizon New England. This petition is to place conduit from Verizon manhole 12 along Commonwealth Ave up to Harry Aganis Way, up to the private property line. And it will also include a city shadow and will be for a future DS node. Any questions?
Commissioners?
I believe that the city of Boston has an on-street accessible parking space along this way the last time I checked, which was a while ago, so it might not still be there. But if it is there, we just ask the proponent to coordinate with my office so we can have it relocated.
Make sure to pass that along. Thank you.
JC staff, members of the public?
All set.
All right, will you be ready for your public hearing in 2 weeks?
Sounds good, yeah.
We'll see you on November 3rd. All right. Moving on to new business number 7, 77 Seaport Boulevard, South Boston, granted location on a petition by Verizon New England Incorporated. Petitioners, please reintroduce themselves and walk us through what's being proposed.
James Day Toronto, representing Verizon New England. Verizon is actually withdrawing this petition pending information and correspondence regarding the irrigation and tree roots along Seaport Boulevard.
All right, we will wait to hear further from you on this petition. Last but not least is new business 8, 2 to 8 Horrenden Way, Parker Street, Roxbury, granted location on a petition by Verizon New England Incorporated. Would petitioners please reintroduce themselves and walk us through what is being proposed?
James Day Toronto, representing Verizon New England. Verizon's proposing to place new conduit from the existing Verizon manhole 15/612 on Parker Street, approximately 307 feet, with a city shadow to a future shared use handhole to be placed by Exynos Systems. This will be for a DAS node as well. Any questions?
Commissioners, PIC staff, members of the public?
All set.
All right, will you be ready for your hearing on November 3rd? Oh, sorry, we couldn't quite hear you there, Dan.
Oh, yes, we will.
All right, excellent. See you then for all of these things. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, and with that, right on time, we're at the end of our agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Thank you all very, very much. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.